This first question comes in from late last week, and it asks if storytelling has always been a part of my imagery or a part of who I am, or has it developed over time? And the short answer to this is it's developed over time, and I'll show you an example of that. In that image of Shane and his daughter that I posted, it was near Father's Day, and it just so happened that there were multiple dads out there and their younger daughters, and they were all teaming up. Now, for me, it reminded me of when my kids were small. Telling stories through my images really start for me by my own personal experiences, and that has to do with having my own kids and having my kids grown up and seeing the relationships at such a young age, like Kelty there. Just for me on my journey, I felt like once the technical details like exposure, composition, and things like that were over for me, and those felt to be more intuitive, I was able to tap into the passion of storytelling. Apparently there was some kind of Instagram issue and it wasn't uploading that picture of Shane and his daughter Kelty. So now you can see it. I posted it at the end of this story. Good question here. No, not in the beginning for me, but 10 years down the road, boy, there is a creative hole that you can get in, and I liken it to probably what they call writer's block. But the challenge here is constantly creating. That's what I have to do for myself. You get stale. It can happen over and over and over. Hell, you can get stale for 6 years and then have a breakthrough and you don't even know where that breakthrough came from. By way of example, the next post is going to be a picture that I forced myself to take, literally forced myself. It was cold, it was foggy, it was just a shitty night, but I forced myself out to create something. I keep those images with me to remind me that I continually have to force myself out. And if that's happening to you in the beginning, I can only tell you that later on down your journey, it's probably going to get worse. So challenge yourself. This is a really good question, and I'm going to take it in stages. So stage number one is my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm telling you my own personal experience, my own research, and working with my own attorney on issues like this. With the disclaimer out of the way, you don't need a watermark to affect your copyright. From the minute that you press a shutter button on your camera, you own the copyright to that image. You own that intellectual property that you own. Now that you own that intellectual property to the image, you have the exclusive right to license that image for money. So if you take that picture, you license it to families, you license it to businesses to use it. You better be watching these all the way through, because what I'm not saying now is I am not telling you that you shouldn't watermark your images. I'm telling you that you own the intellectual property from the minute you take the picture. Watermarking your images is a good practice. When we watermark our images, it does a couple things for us. Number one, it can create a great argument that the person that stole your image and cropped out your watermark didn't do it willfully. Number two, it keeps your brand recognition out there in the field. Now, for the business side of things, think about it this way. It's a negotiating topic that you can use to your advantage. So if somebody wants you to shoot and don't want you to put your watermark on there, you can charge for that. Practically speaking, I actually have two watermarks. One that just has @CDPhotog down in the right-hand corner, and the other that has my signature, the CDP. And I do that to designate whether it came from my laptop or my desktop. So we're talking about that image that I posted today for Tutorial Tuesday. It's a picture of Kent riding out to rope another, and it's about 10 p.m. and we're finishing up on midnight branding. So I'll post that picture and we'll talk about it. Sometimes when we take an image, we're actually making it appear to be something that it's not. So by way of example, perhaps it looks like there's stars out with Kent, but they're not stars. This all goes back to seeing light and developing an image for yourself. So when Kent rode out there, what you're not seeing are the big floodlights off to the left there, and what you think are stars are actually bugs. On the technical side of things for this image, what I did was I used noise reduction in Lightroom because I was using ISO 1000, and then I just added a sharpening on my export, and that's it. Sure thing, look for either the T7 or the T7i. The T7 is going to be cheaper by about $300, so probably $500 to $600, whereas the 7i is going to be more like $800 to $900. Among other things on the T7i, some of the highlights for that additional $300 are 45 focus points versus 9, an expanded ISO range, and also a frame rate of 6 versus 3. When you say the tone bar here, I presume you're talking about tone curve in Lightroom. And if that's the case, on most of my images, especially those that I take during the day, I have medium contrast set on most of my presets. A majority of my edits are done through just the basic panel in Lightroom, and that's the first one. Lightroom really, for me, is set up in an intuitive workflow as I work on my images. Now, because this is Tutorial Tuesday, I'm going to go through, I'm going to take an unedited image, and I'm just going to use a tone curve in Lightroom and show you how you can adjust things based on the time of day that you shoot and different things you can do. In that image, you can see that it already has a significant amount of contrast based on the time of day that I'm shooting, which is the evening. And when you add a little extra in the blue channel, you can get that kind of coolness in the shadows. More than anything, this just made my day and put a smile on my face. I'm honored that half the participants for 2019 come from my last workshop in 2018 out with Jen on the DX Ranch. So from both of us, thank you so much. I just want to take a minute and acknowledge the person that just sent me a direct message who connects with their images on such a deeper level, and they just received a new Canon 5D Mark IV, and they've been using an old 30D for quite some time. I also want to say thank you for reaching out to me and sharing with me your story. It's deeply personal, and I appreciate that. We don't get to take anything with us when we go, and if we want our legacy to live on, we have to share our information. So for all of you that connect with my tutorials, when you get to the point when things feel intuitive for you, don't forget to turn back around and share the information that you've learned, because that's how we grow. I use two 22-inch Dell monitors. One came with a computer that I bought, I think maybe 8 years ago, and the other I got for free, which happened to be the same kind. You can see it right there, and I also took a picture of them. There's a wide range of products, and there's also a wide range of discussion topics surrounding your monitors, like color calibration and right skin tones and things like that. These have worked for me for many years, and I see no reason to change now unless one breaks. These always make me laugh. Thank you for sending them. I have 3 ways that you can be as awesome as me. Number 1, wear a Boston hat. Number 2, have a ton of self-deprecating humor. And number 3, have red hair. 3 tips for silhouettes. Number 1, expose for the sky above the sunset or sunrise. Number 2, separate your subjects so they don't turn into a big black blob. And number 3, play with your white balance for different colors. And you thought Tutorial Tuesdays were just confined to Tuesdays. Not a chance. I got a late question in, and they ask about shooting in an arena and balancing light. That's tough work. You know, anybody that's shot in an arena that doesn't have lights, you know it's tough. So here's the thing, 3 things. Number 1, if you don't have lights, you're going to need to compensate by shooting with a higher ISO. Number 2, you're going to need a fast lens. In other words, something that shoots at f2.8 or less. And number 3, the final thing, make sure you're shooting raw so you have maximum flexibility in editing, and set a custom white balance to balance out those lights. I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 3200 Kelvin to 3500 Kelvin when I'm shooting in an arena.